Good morning, greetings. How is everybody doing? Happy Friday. The weekend is here. I'm excited. It's been a great week, busy week as always. Welcome to your HMG weekly wrap up. You know how we do this. Actually, I'm just sitting here. You guys know I got to share this. We got to share this out. Let's get a couple of you guys on because I'm excited. We got a very special guest that's going to be joining us today. One that you're going to want to pay attention to. So share this out when you watch this. If you watch this during the live or later on throughout the weekend, leave a comment. Let us know where you're at. And let's go ahead and get started here. My guest today, he's a seasoned leader, entrepreneur, a retired U.S. Army veteran with over 18 years of dedicated service. He is the host of the podcast Warrior Veteranpreneur, Mr. Jeremiah Hardy. So, JJ, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm great, man. Thank you for bringing me on here. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your life to come on and join us. Exciting news, folks. JJ's podcast, both of his podcasts are joining. JJ's actually one of the new HMG family members. So welcome to the family. And I thought, what better way than to just put him in the hot seat right out the gate and let everybody get to know you a little bit. So tell the viewers, listeners who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I'm going to start off by saying I'm glad I'm able to come on here and enjoy my coffee with everybody this morning. JJ Hardy. I was a warrant officer when I was in the Army. I was a mobility warrant officer, served for about 18 years, just like Adam said. Once I retired, I worked a few jobs, and then I decided to start my own business. I have Victory Leadership Coaching, and it's a company that was designed because I was noticing that people were being kind of thrown into management positions without any mentorship, guidance, training, so on and so forth. And so I decided to go ahead and fix that, do what I thought I could to fix that problem. So I do a lot of one-on-one coaching for some senior leaders, and then I have a new manager training program. And then I recently launched one it's a coaching program. It's designed for senior leaders or people who want to coach for their own business. And then I have my podcast. Well, I have two of them actually, two podcasts, and then I have just a live show that I do every other week. But the podcast, Warrior Veteranpreneur podcast, you were telling a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. But the podcast has two goals, man. It's designed to inspire veterans to kind of get out of their head and get off the couch and go out there and work towards their goals. They don't have to start a business. We talk a lot about how we get stuck during our transition and how life is hard for a little while and how unnecessary that is, because we have all the tools to do the job in here, in our heart, and up here in our brain that we learned throughout the years. And that was us. That wasn't necessarily the military that gave that to us. In addition to that, veteranpreneurs, that's just military entrepreneurs. So people who used to serve and now they have their own businesses. I like to showcase them. I think it's really, really cool to meet all kinds of business owners out there that have served and to know that all kinds of other people are doing great and wonderful things just like you, and just like the people that introduced me to you and all the people that I've had on my podcast.
JD, how long have you been podcasting?
So a little over a year. So I started off with Warrior Leadership, which was the one I was going to tell you about. And I have that with he's an Army veteran. His name is Derek, and he goes by DB the therapist. But he's a great guy. He's a therapist. He has his own practice, but he also works at the VA over in California. And we talk about the parallels for leadership training and coaching and therapy. And we just like to bring up different topics We have a lot of audience interaction with that show. I do that as a live stream, and then I put it on Spotify. So
Nice. I
that,
love
that
it.
it's a lot of fun. But I started off with that one, and then I started interviewing business owners, which has grown my network significantly. And now I'm, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of my therapy. It's just a lot of fun talking to all these people about all these wonderful things.
Let me ask you, I want to go back because you're talking about the transitioning side of things. What do you see, or what has been the hardest thing or the most common thing that you see with people transitioning out of the military? What's the hardest thing for them to either grasp or to move forward with?
Well, when you're serving in the military, you have a very specific identity. I was CW2 Hardy working at the brigade level, and I knew when I showed up to work that I had a very specific set of duties that I was supposed to be doing. I
Yeah.
didn't have to look for the work. People would often come to me because I had all the experience. Plus, I was a CW2. I knew where I stood in the hierarchy. Then I got out, right? So that identity is that specific identity
Right.
is lost. That mission is lost. So what a lot of people are struggling with, including myself, and I'm sure you had this, and a lot of people do, but when you lose that mission and you lose that identity, it's kind of like, what next? Then you get stuck in your head, and then you start looking at all these job postings that are out there, and you're like, none of this even makes sense. I don't know what that means. I don't know how
Right.
to do any of that. I mean, and when in reality, you do know how to do those things. As a matter of fact, we have this saying in the military, baptism by fire. How many times throughout the years have we just been thrown into stuff, and you pretty much just have to figure it out with minimal guidance, and you just work together and you figure it out? Well, that is a skill that most civilians do not have, people. But the thing that I see during transition is that people lose that identity and mission, and they just get stuck. And that's not necessary. That's not necessary at all. I really would like to bring more awareness to the fact that, and all my conversations are centered around this, that we need to break that stigma and help people get away from that stuck point.
Yeah, I saw a statistic a couple of years ago, and this is probably 3, 4 years old by now, that when you transition out of the military, it usually takes about 3 years before somebody kind of really gets into finding what their purpose is. And you think about 3 years, for a lot of people, like, oh, that's not that's not a very long time. That's only temporary. It's this or that. And there's some truth to that statement. However, a lot of those seem to be, or I'm curious to see, let me rephrase that. I'm curious to see, out of those that have taken 3 years, how many of them prepared themselves knowing that they were getting ready to ETS out of the military? Um, because I think now one of the things that I've pushed over the last several years is, if you know you're not re-enlisting, or you're going to retire, and you're either retiring or you're ETSing out of the military, that date, you should at least 18 months at a minimum, and start planning on, okay, I'm getting out in 18 months. This is where I want to go. This is my idea of where I want to be, what I want to do, and then start looking, start networking, start building that up. And you may get there and realize, yeah, I don't want to do this shit. And that's a lot of the times that's the case. You may do 3 or 4 jobs before you realize, I don't want to do this, or yes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that. I would love for us to cut down, like, you don't have to, when you transition out, it doesn't have to be a difficult task. I think a lot of it is I'm going to go as far and make an unpopular comment here and say a lot of it is kind of our own stubbornness. It's just like, I just want to get out. I want to go and just figure out. But then when you get there, you get frustrated, and then, I don't want to go down that hole per se, but that's a whole nother day and topic. But you start going down and getting into places that you don't need to be, and realize, well, nobody's here to help. Well, there's a lot of us here to help, and that's what we want to do is help, so you don't have to go down the wrong path.
Yeah, and one thing that I wish they taught more in the TAP program
Yeah.
is how to network and build community. Because one thing that you don't, I mean, who to go to when you're on active duty. You know who to go to for everything. What you don't know how to do is grow that network when you get out of the military. Obviously, you run into a lot of people, typically civilians, when you're doing specific jobs that require you to travel and deploy and do all those things that you do in the military. But keep those business cards and do all that stuff. But also, they tell you to use LinkedIn. They tell you to use your resources and go seek out veterans and all this other stuff. But they give you the what, but they don't give you the how. And I think that in order for us to really become super successful during that transition, there needs to be more of that how given to us before we leave. Because if it's not a clear mission and we get out there and we just see all these moving pieces and all these people that when we talk to them, they just kind of look at us funny because we speak differently anyway, then
Right.
it just gets overwhelming and confusing. So there needs to be more education on that, I believe, during the transition to help, especially the people who serve for a long time, become more successful.
Yeah. It's a true statement. Ken, good morning to you, brother. Appreciate you being on. We got a lot of people over on Instagram. Mark, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Rackin, appreciate you guys. Brent, thank you. Mrs. HMG's on. Dear, appreciate you. One of the other things that kind of gets me with the whole transition side of things is, we've all those that have gone through some type of military service has to go to basic training, so they train you how to be a soldier, a Marine, an airman, in the Navy, what have you. And then when it's time for you to leave, it's kind of like, thanks, there you go, best of luck to you. And it's like, there's no, it's like, figure it out on your own. And granted, we've been trained to, like, a lot of the times there's certain jobs that you need to figure out a lot of stuff on your own, but you had training to get to the point where you needed to figure out whatever it was they wanted you to do. So why not take care of our service members as they're moving on into the next? I think we owe that to them, at least. When I got out, it was a guard guy at the time. I got out and it was, hey, thanks. And I was out like next day, like nothing, and now that being said, my situation doesn't, because in the guard you got your civilian job, and I had a civilian job at the time, and whatnot. So it's a little bit different. But I've had friends, very close friends, when they come off of active duty, they're just like, I don't know what to do. I'm depressed and this and that. I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, fine. I'm saying all this because find a purpose, get involved in something, whether it's nonprofit work or volunteer time at the church or whatever. Get involved in a community and start feeling that community again. And through that, and here's the thing: a transition isn't easy. But it doesn't have to be hard either. It's kind of like a mindset in a sense, right? You're all you're doing is closing a chapter in a book, and now you get to write the next chapter.
Yeah, that's true.
And
they actually,
how you look at it too, right? Like, it could be exciting. Like, hey, I get to write this chapter the way I want to write it now.
That is so true. They actually teach us the success mindset in the military, where you go into a problem, and I mean the whole AAR is built around this concept. So you go into something, you either do well, or 9 times out of 10 it's messier than what you expected. And then you come back after it's all over and you say, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do differently, and what can we keep the same? Well, if you adopt that into the civilian world, and when you're trying to either start a business or get a job or whatever the case, I think that can be a huge benefit to you. Not to mention, not everything needs to be negative. If you can figure out the positive side to everything that you're doing, instead of slipping into a depression, chances are you're gonna find that there's a lot of positive things happening if you just look for those positive things.
Here's the other thing I would say a lot of people make a mistake on is that I want to talk about the depression side of it is not doing anything about it.
That's true.
We get there's a lot of people that get in the mindset. I've been guilty of it myself. Is just like I don't want to bother anybody else with my problems, and that's an internal thought. When that I go as far as I say this is like there are people out there whose purpose in life is to help other people, like how you're feeling. And if you don't open up to those people, then you're denying them what their purpose is in life,
Yeah,
right?
you're not wrong. You're
Um,
not. Well, and actually, you can get addicted to that feeling of depression.
yeah,
Oftentimes, what happens is that when you start getting depressed, you're like, "Oh, there's nothing I can do about it," and then you kind of wallow in it, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. It's like a downward spiral,
yep,
and it's just I call it a failure loop because that's really the only way you fail is when you don't learn from your mistakes and you just kind of sit there in these horrible feelings, and not only do you not know what to do about them, but you don't even take active steps to try to do anything about it. You don't talk to anybody, you
right,
don't go anywhere, you don't do anything.
yeah.
And that makes
I
it
don't know.
even worse.
I don't. I like the ones that's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what." Well, have you asked? Well, no. Okay. Well, I don't want to bother anybody. Well, what makes you think you're bothering somebody? There are how many I'll just take the nonprofit sector for veterans. How many nonprofit veteran organizations out there? Hundreds of thousands of them in the United States. So many of them, great programs that they have for various different things. The
Yep.
thing is as we really I mean, I'll go as far as to say this, JJ, when you're transitioning out at this point in this day and age, you really don't have an excuse not to either reach out to somebody or to succeed because the tools are out there to help you
Hmm.
move next whatever direction that is, whether I want to go work a corporate job, I want to get a 9 to 5 and work a 9 to 5. Great. Here's how you do that. I want to start a business. Great. Here's how you do that. And here's what comes along with all of that. It's there's really no excuse now to why other than the internal thought process of I don't want to bother anybody with it. You're not
Yeah.
bothering anybody. We have to really stop saying that. I've heard that so many times, even just within the last 3 weeks. Oh, I don't want to bother anybody with my issues. Stop it. That's an excuse, and we don't do that. We don't do that.
No, no.
JJ, how can people reach out to you, and find out where you are? What's your website? Let's give them your contact stuff so they can reach out to you and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my website is victoryleadershipcoaching.com. You can also look me up, Jeremiah Hardy on LinkedIn, uh, JJ Hardy on Facebook. Also, if you type in hashtag veteran leader trainer, you'll be overwhelmed with my ugly face all over your computer screen. So, I mean, veteran leader trainer, all one word. And so that if you want to get a hold of me, you can. I would love to talk to anyone, especially if you're a veteran. And by the way, especially if you're struggling with the type of stuff that Adam and I have been talking about
Yeah.
today.
And that goes for I'm going to go a step further and say that anybody, whether you're particularly you're talking or you got two vets here, Army veterans here. So obviously we help our community, but from the network side of it, anybody, if you're same thing with law enforcement people, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, we want to help everybody out there. If you're going through something, say something. Heather Elizabeth, good morning. I appreciate you jumping on. Um, Yeah, it's crazy, the transition stuff. So those of you out there, especially you shows on HMG, welcome our new brother to the family. Make sure you reach out to JJ. Um, and you can find all of his information on his websites. Plus, go to heroesmediagroup.com. You'll see his show there. It looks just like that. Boom.
There it is.
So make sure you check that out. I feel like I had another question for you. Okay, I do. What was the your own personal experience with transition? What was the hardest thing that you found?
Well, my transition was a little bit different. So I transitioned into helping a family member. We moved over in with my wife's parents because her father had dementia and diabetes,
Mm,
and her mother was still working. And it was an opportunity for us to help. But I did, he has since passed. And when I went from being out of the military and now not really having that to do anymore, and having to navigate everything outside of that, it was hard. But when he was still around, it was kind of great because he was a very social person. He was
yeah,
also, by the way, a retired lieutenant colonel. And we would go around to places like DAV, and he was very social. When I would take him to his VA appointments, and I learned about all of the nonprofits and resources there. I'm not going to say it was easy when I had to figure this out, and start working and find something to do on my own. However, you just got to get past the horrible stuff. And that, when I say the horrible stuff, I mean the the 99 out of every 100 jobs you apply for, you get that email that says you're not qualified, or that they found somebody else to fill the position, or whatever the case may be. And that takes a while. As a matter of fact, it took me, I was well over 6 months before I even got offered my first job. And so, when you start thinking about it that way, you have to have a specific mindset, and it's to, this didn't work. What do I do next? This didn't work. What do I do next? And just keep on plugging away, and make sure you're talking to the right people. And if you have a support group, I had a community over at the DAV that I was visiting with in Virginia. I would talk about it with people, and they were very encouraging. So if you surround yourself with the right people during your transition, like I did, I feel like getting out, that process of getting out, and being that excess person on the roster was
yeah,
harder than the actual transition itself, just because I was already connected in my community.
yeah. I love that you said that because it's like this goes to show people like networking is such a big thing.
Yes,
And I've always said sometimes it's not always what you know, but who you know.
it's all about
Some-
who you know.
And you can peg into that network. And if you're a good person and you got a solid network with you, you would be surprised of the open doors that happen for you.
Yeah.
I like my personal favorite. I want to jump back for a second. My favorite is like when you apply for a job and they come back and he's like, well, you're overqualified.
Oh,
I'm like,
gee.
I'm just like, that sounds perfect. Like,
Well, put me in
so
coach.
why am I not hired? Like, I didn't. Was like, well, you're overqualified for this entry level position. Yeah, but I qualified for the entry level position. Like, I don't.
Yep.
I want the 9 to 5. I don't give a crap about everything. Well,
Yeah.
you're overqualified.
I just need a paycheck.
Yeah, I
I had that
fucking love
so
the. I
much.
used to love
Oh,
those responses. So then, like, I think, and this is years ago. I came back and I said, great. I said, what other positions do you have available that I am qualified for? Then
big zero.
nothing, nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Well,
like, all right,
and it's more than that, right? I mean, people don't know what to do with military experience. I had to change my resume multiple times. I mean, I catered it to every job, but what made it hard was, so a mobility warrant officer, they call us a master of deployment. And so you are supposed to be considered that subject matter expert on moving things by ground, air, or sea.
right.
And what I found, and I didn't know this, but there is no such thing as a civilian position that does that. So when people started looking at my resume, they're like, I don't know what to do with all of this. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, well, I can do any of them, which is why I applied for this job. And they would all say, well, you have way too in-depth of experience for what you would be doing here. We don't really have a place for you. Well, I want to manage your entire safety program, or I want to manage your entire operations program. I'd love to be the director of this.
Yeah.
Oh, you're kind of overqualified for that.
Yeah.
Well, can't I
You're
decide that?
welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Can't I decide that? I mean, if I want to take a step down, shouldn't that be my decision?
Most people, you would think that companies would just jump at the bit to have somebody overqualified for a position because the potential that it has to expand their business.
Yes.
That's
But
that's what I don't know. Maybe that's just my way of thinking. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's still pretty early in the day. I mean, it'd be the first time today, but I would like to think that would be something that you would want. I want
but
people that are overqualified.
but they want
'Cause
you to
the
fit.
potential there is,
They want you to fit in a box.
yeah, I don't know.
And if you're not in that box, then it makes them uncomfortable. And then when you start talking about you start using big
Yeah.
words or things that they don't understand, then they're like, that's intimidating. I don't want this person here. They'll put you through the interview process, but they probably already have somebody selected anyway.
See, I hear this. You did this. They want you in that box. I
Yeah.
hear that, and I picture this. They
Right.
wanna be able to control you. And some
The
people, that's fine.
control.
Some people are like,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, just tell me where my boundaries are, and I'll stick to that." Great.
Yeah.
If you're that type of person, God bless you.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not
Or
me personally, I can't be like, "You can put me in a box." It's only gonna last so long before I get uncomfortable, and I'm gonna start kicking down walls.
mhm.
That's
Well,
me personally. That's me personally.
and Heather Elizabeth says they're afraid they'll be expected to pay you more because you are so qualified. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah.
Well,
But
as
but
long
at the
as you
same
treat us
time, like, if
well,
you're growing, then why wouldn't you wanna do that? You would think if a business is growing, I mean, she makes a good point. Um, but then it goes back to, like, what we're all the things that we're not talking about. You got shareholders, you got, you know, profit margins, you got all this other people that they have to answer to and stuff, and it turns into this, you know, big headache. I'm not against capitalism. I like making money too, don't get me wrong, but then at the same time, like, there's, we profited, 30, million dollars last year, and then it was like, not us personally. I wish I profited $30 million last year. But if you get a company like that and then they turn around like, we did that because we fired 100 people, X, Y, and Z, and then we didn't give any bonuses, but then you see and this is what really irks me, is you see the top tier of the flagpole people, they're all getting $5-6 million bonuses and whatnot. Meanwhile, the janitor and some of the people that actually make the company run
yeah.
are scraping just to get by. I have a big problem with that. Big problem with
Well,
that.
and here's the thing that I know your audience is pretty mixed. So I will
Yeah.
say that one thing that people need to understand about veterans is, yes, we have to have that growth. We expect
Yeah.
it. There's a promotion scale in the military. We expect growth.
Yep.
However, once we're hired into a position, we will do that at the rate that we agreed to because we're more mission focused than we are anything else. And so let the veterans do the work that they choose to do at the rate that they choose to do it for, and you're going to have a very, very, very loyal employee.
Yeah. Yeah. David, good morning, brother. I told him the Arizona crew is getting on there. Ken, David, got a bunch of people over at the Good Friday morning over there. Animal Plus.
We just had to wait an extra 30 minutes for the
What's
Arizona crew, I
yeah.
guess.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, the whole job thing I could sit and talk about for
Oh, me
hours
too.
on end
Oh,
because
yeah.
it drives me nuts how companies don't take care of their people. I would rather, and I would rather make the bare minimum and then spread the wealth out. So because I feel like if you do that, less turnover rate because people are going to be happy. They're making money and they're happy. I think communication is a big key, and I think a lot of these big organizations are missing that. And it used to drive me nuts. I won't say the particular company that I was at, but they did a big layoff, and it was the bean counters came in, and and then they turned around and gave themselves millions and millions of dollars of bonuses. And meanwhile, they cut 700 jobs, and you're just like, you guys are a bunch of. There's a special place in hell for
Yeah,
people. That,
great that you got that money, but at what cost? I hate that. Yeah,
yeah,
I completely agree. No, but this whole job thing it's a racket. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what it is. And until you can convince the senior people at the company to take better care of their people, communicate and empower them, and then pay them what they're worth.
yeah,
I mean, everyone has their own views on this, and every single company, small to large, they're all different.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. JJ, let's transition into some of and everybody that's watching right now, if you're live, hold what we're talking about. Hold what we're talking about, because it goes into some of the topics that I've picked today. What do we have here over on Instagram here? Okay. Back to work. I'm grateful I found a job where employees treat me well. Oh, that's awesome. Animals plus 1H. Good for you. Good for you.
Outstanding.
Appreciate you jumping on. Thank you.
No, that's awesome.
I'm gonna. So JJ's new to the network. Those of you that are just jumping on, JJ's new to the HMG family, and JJ, what I'm going to do now is I take a couple of news topics and kind of give the title a little bit about it, and then I put my 2 cents in. This is a quick reminder to everybody that these topics that I picked from this week, do your own research. Don't take my word for it. I tell you guys this all the time. Don't take my word for this stuff. Do your own research on it. Come up with your own. And if you disagree with me, fine. Let's have a conversation about it. Because either way, you guys, I respect you. I've had so many people come up to me like, well, you're wrong about this, this, and this. Okay. That's your opinion. You're certainly entitled to that. God bless you. Let me see here. David, I know. David, I know. And ironically, David, man, I'm going to put this up there. David, good buddy of mine. We don't follow daylight savings. I know. I remember. And I forgot, but this is the only time I got, man. I don't know what to do.
So, David, we actually talked about that before we went live today, and so he's acknowledging that, but this is what he had.
I thought about changing the show to like, all right, well, most of the guys that watch, my West Coast people, I was just like, I can't. I got to keep it at 9. I've been doing it this way for however long I've been doing the show now. 5 years. All right, first one in the queue. What do we got here? North Korea tests AI-powered suicide drones under Kim Jong-un's supervision. Leader Kim Jong-un, I can't make this up, guys. I'm sorry. Kim Jong-un has overseen tests of newly developed artificial intelligence AI-powered suicide drone, emphasizing the importance of unmanned systems and AI in modernizing the nation's armed forces. The state media reported that Kim inspected upgraded reconnaissance drones capable of detecting various tactical targets and monitoring enemy activities on land and sea. Should we be surprised by this? I mean, seriously, it just, what's going to happen with AI? And again, tick that in the back of the mind as we move on to the next one. I just thought this was interesting. Are we going to see more AI? The drones have been around for a long time.
My only question for that is, Adam, is what kind of further analysis are people taking the AI footage and results as face value and then moving on, or are they actually doing further analysis on these things? Because what I have found is that AI does what it does, but it doesn't always give you what you need.
Right. Yeah, everybody's got to keep in mind AI is pulling information from somewhere. So just keep that in mind. What do we have here? Heather. Yeah. Ken. Yeah, right there, buddy. Right.
What are the twins?
I cannot. I can't.
Never mind. I won't. Never mind. That's an
I'll
inside
show
joke.
you after. I can't bring it forward. I can't zoom in on it. I'm
Okay.
already. The social media hates me already, so I got. But yes, brother, they're right there. I told you it'd be right there. Next up, hey, this next one we're talking about those of you that watch this for a long time now. We're talking about my favorite person who I love to talk about, Mr. Bill Gates. Within 10 years, AI will replace many doctors and teachers. Humans won't be needed for most things. And I say JJ's new to this, so I got to. I don't really. I don't like using the word hate, so I will say I strongly dislike Mr. Bill Gates. I think he's the cesspool that lies underneath a cesspool. Like he's a bad human, I believe. Microsoft co-founder and billionaire philanthropist. Okay. Told comedian Jimmy Fallon during the interview on NBC's The Tonight Show in February that at the moment, expertise remains rare, but Gates explained, pointing to human specialties we still rely on in many fields, including a great doctor or great teacher. But with AI over the next decade, that will become a free commonplace, great medical advice and great tutoring. Bull. Like here's God, why do we listen to this guy? Why? Somebody please tell me why do we listen to a guy that didn't even he had an idea for a computer, didn't build it. People in India build it. We all know that. Why did and then he comes out and says, well, we need to take these vaccines and we got to do this. He's not a scientist, so like, and now he's saying AI is why are we listening to this guy? Because he's got all the money in the world, and he probably paid to be on. I don't know. I'm just it just look at my skin is. Do you have any thoughts on this, JJ, with Bill Gates? Do you have?
Yeah, I do. So I'm not going to cut on the man himself.
Yeah.
I don't know what his internal thought process is. What I will say is that I think in my household, I have a couple people living in my house. I'm not going to name who they are specifically, but whenever there's an ailment, the first thing that they do is they go online and they start going down the WebMD rabbit hole. And you know what's not good about that is that we can look at all this stuff, but we don't have any education or experience in the medical field. So we can't, how are we supposed to analyze that? Well, if they're saying teachers, definitely not. I can't even believe he said that teachers can be replaced. But on the doctor's side, that's even more difficult, because if you don't have anybody to explain this stuff to you and help you understand what actually is good and what is not good, then you're just going down a rabbit hole, and you might think that you have cancer when in all reality you just have indigestion or something like that. And when it comes to AI, everybody knows that for the most part, you have to do further analysis with AI.
Yeah.
You just do, because most of it is outdated data. And it's
good point.
And you know, when you're talking about replacing teachers and doctors with AI, that's a really, really bold statement, because you can't do that. I mean, you have to, most times you have to go in front of a doctor.
Yeah.
And you explain what's going on. And then they check your temperature. And then they look at they look at your skin color. They look at everything that's going on with you. And then they do some lab tests, and then they figure out what's going on. Well, how in the hell is AI supposed to do that? Pardon my language. And
the only thing I can think of to that, JJ, is that they, like the body scans or anything like that. But then there's a whole nother problem with that. Then you got radiation and this other stuff. I will say this: the debate over later on in the article, it said the debate over how exactly most humans will fit into this AI powered future is ongoing.
Okay.
Excuse me. Some experts say AI will help humans be more, will work more efficiently rather than replace them altogether, and a spur economic growth that leads to more jobs being created. I think that's an interesting twist to that particular article. I've had experts on here before. Our good friend Dr. Hans Munn was on last month, or in January. We talked about AI and drone warfare. It's like, I think the big thing is, like, you go to these machines and AI taking over everything and all of these jobs. You got, you go to a fast food place, and now there's not so much one-on-one interaction. You go to a thing and you order, and sure, there's efficiency there, but that opens up other jobs that are currently available. I tell everybody, and I'm going to say it right now: trade schools. If learn a trade, welding, carpentry, roofing, plumbing. 90% of the jobs in the US, that's not the number I came up with. That was the number that I saw online recently. 90% of the jobs that are open in the US are like trade jobs, and nobody's there to fill them. Good people aren't in there to fill them. So take a look at that. We got to move on. This one's coming out of the Atlantic. It releases the signal chat showing Pete Hegseth's detailed attack plans against people over there in Yemen. I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to try. Anyway, this happened Wednesday. They released the entire signal chat among senior national security officers, showing that the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth provided exact timings of warplane launches when the bombs would drop before men would. Okay, I've looked at this, and it's a little questionable, in my opinion. I've also looked at other sources from this. Pete was on yesterday on X and stated yet again that there was no such plans. My question to this: was this a setup? I know that sounds a little conspiracy theory, and you guys thought you were going to get away with the Friday without me jumping down that rabbit hole. You're wrong. Because that's the type of shit I think that they didn't want Pete in. There's people that did not want Pete in that office, and I don't know. I've seen different articles on it. If you guys want to know more about it, look it up yourself, but really do a deep dive and then see who's saying what and compare it to something else, and see if there's any articles. There are a few articles outside of the US. I'm not going to tell you where. Just do a Google search or get on Twitter or X, and you'll see. JJ, have you seen it? Have you tracked any of this week?
I've looked at it a little bit. And so what I will say about that is he's a former service member.
Yeah.
Now he's the SecDef.
Yeah.
So if you see anywhere that there is times, places, anything like that put out over any sort of broad social media, news, anything like that, you got to question it, because the military as a whole, and as him being a former service member, now the SecDef, they're not going to put out exact stuff. It's probably smoke and mirrors, because operational security is extremely important. And if you start giving away crucial details to operations, honestly, it's not just a matter of a lack of predictability when you're doing these combat operations that the military needs, but the service members that are going to be engaged in these operations will be put in severe danger if the enemy knows what we're going to be doing. And so when it comes to things like this, you have to question it.
Yeah.
You really do.
This isn't the first time this type of stuff has happened. Maybe in that position, but if you look at the media as a whole, now the fact that this came from the Atlantic, CNN reported something on it, Not that I'm giving either one of those organizations any type of credit because they both suck. But there's two ways I think you can look at this deep dive, and it's maybe I think part of it could be a setup. There could be a setup side of this. We've been people. There's organizations. I won't say who, but use your imagination. You see that organizations have embedded emails, have embedded text messages in people's phones. You walk around, you think you're safe. You're not. There's no privacy. You can you shut your phone off, you take the battery. Most of you can't even take the battery out. They can still listen and hear what you're doing. What makes you think that they can't tap into the Secretary of Defense phone and embed something? I'm not saying that's what they did. I'm not saying anybody did that. But I'm saying is it possible? Sure, could be. Let me see here. We got a couple of comments here. Remember AI advancing the oh, yeah, that's good on that. David makes sense on the AI stuff. Long angle, but weak though he and his yeah, that's true too. I look at it like this. I think it's going to be interesting to see what transpires more from this because you have all these influencers, and I'll use that very lightly. I don't like that word. That come out and immediately said he needs to resign. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. Why don't we pump the brakes a little bit? Like there's people that have been in different offices that have done far worse. And here's the other thing: who's to say that it wasn't a setup, or it was? If it wasn't a setup, it was done on purpose to see if there was a mole or a leak that can be used.
Yeah.
So no, we don't know. But that being said, it gets better. I'm gonna jump down to I'm not going to. I'm gonna hold that one. Let's go to the next one here. Education Secretary issues warning to California over trans athletes. I can't believe this is still in the news. Why are we talking about trans? Linda McMahon, Education Secretary Linda McMahon warned California Governor Gavin Newsom that the state may lose funding unless it complies with President Donald Trump's order protecting women's sports. McMahon drew attention to Newsom's recent comment that male athletes participating in women's sports is deeply unfair, end quote. Well, no shit.
Yeah. No kidding.
What? Duh.
I mean,
but the problem is that there's an overwhelming majority of Americans agree, and this is Linda McMahon saying this. She's saying that biological men in women's sports is unfair and wrong. She wrote, many are confused, however, by your office's silence on harms of substituting gender identity for sex in other areas of school environments. After all, if men are identifying as women shouldn't play in women's sports, why do California schools continue to let boys identifying as girls use girls' bathrooms and locker rooms and sleep in girls only overnight accommodations? End quote. That's a great question to ask. Why are we having, why is this so? I don't understand this.
Well,
I'm really confused about this.
Well, it's horrible. You know, the one thing that I think about is that whether somebody chooses to identify as the opposite gender or not, that does not give them, especially a male who is identifying as female, the right to go into the restroom or locker room of a female. I mean, my goodness, if my daughter was in there, you almost have to wonder if that person's going to end up predatory or something. That makes me so upset to think that there's a dude in a female locker room. Now, there's another side to that. If there was supervision or whatever the case, that's a little bit different, but I don't think there is. There's no more supervision than there was when you and I used to use the locker room in high school.
Let me ask you this, Jay. Let me throw a monkey wrench in your thought process here. We've been overseas.
Yes.
Some places overseas have unisex bathrooms.
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
It is and it isn't. You have to wonder why these people want so much to be treated equally and go into these places when they know that's not supposed to be the case. Right. Now, if there wasn't a rule against it and people shared the restrooms just like they do overseas, then there's not even a conversation right now.
Right.
But since there is, you know, why are people fighting so hard against it? There has to be something going on there. And I understand there's good and there's bad and there's right and there's wrong. So if you are a man or a boy, you are not a female,
Right.
a girl. So when you look at it that way, you can't be treated the same. When you go to the doctor, you don't get treated the same. They look for different things. So what makes you think that in a school environment that you're going to be treated? There are different things. Biologically, we are different than females. So I mean, I could go on and on and on about this. I could get to the point where I'm probably saying some very controversial and inappropriate things. So I got to be really careful with what I say, but I just don't agree with it.
No, I was gonna say if you question, oh God, I had it. It sounded better in my mind, but if you question, I'm trying to, if you question whether or not what a male or female is, watch the old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Kindergarten Cop.
Ah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, that little boy knew. That little boy knew.
That's all I'm gonna. That's all I'll say about that. And I will say this, and we'll go to the next one, is that if you have male parts and you're playing female parts, you're a pansy. You should not. It's no. Go start. That's why they have co-ed leagues.
Yeah, it's unfair. Even
It's
the military PT test. Even the military PT test has a different standard.
Oh, don't get me started on. All right, we're gonna go to the next one because I'm gonna go off.
Okay.
Oh God. All right. The next one is another $7 billion needed for California rail project. I've talked about this in the past. I want you guys to look this up this weekend. I am not shitting you when I say this. California high-speed rail project needs another $7 billion by the summer of 2026. Now, when we first heard about this, I want you to think about, one, who was in charge of that rail project? Where did the money go for that rail project? What happened in California recently, and I say recently, we'll just say within the last 12 months. David, have a good weekend, brother. Appreciate you. And where's that money going? And where's the rail project supposed to go? So there's so many things. We now have, if you take the last just 12 months, for an example, we have a lot of puzzle pieces that are being put together on this. Okay. The legislative analysts out in California told the office lawmakers during the budget hearing that the project requires another $7 billion. Should the project not receive the funding, it will be further delayed. Now, this project started back in 2008, and they haven't done much, if anything, with it. There's no specific plan to meet the roughly $7 billion gap we need, says this lady, Kirsten. It's and this $7 billion is only to cover 130 mile of the 830 miles of this speed train project. I'm telling you, look this up. You guys are going to see who's in charge of it, where the potential rail line is supposed to go, and what happened recently in California to make you wonder why. Oh, that just seems convenient that that's where the rail project's going, and it's been going on since 2008 and recently. So that's all I'm saying. Put it together. Don't take my word for it, but I think you're going to see certain events that happened in California in the last 12 months. A lot of people involved with it. I know I'm leaving it out there, but I want you guys. I don't. We're going to get shadow banned, so just look it up. Trust me, you're going to be pissed. You'll be pissed.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people out of, it's you guys are going to see how politics really work and what's really happening now. Next up, top MS-13 leader arrested. The FBI arrested the top leader of the MS-13 gang in Virginia. The White House announced the 24-year-old man from El Salvador has been described as one of the gang's top 3 leaders here in the United States. Fun fact, the FBI since January has caught 3 of the top 10 most wanted. That is more than the last 2 administrations have done. I just thought that was pretty interesting fact. I just threw that in there for my own well-being. I like that.
I support it. I think we need to catch these most wanted guys. The more crime bosses that we can get rid of here in the United States, I think that there's a lot of things, securing the border, getting rid of these crime bosses, all of the above will keep a lot of the human trafficking and drugs from getting worse and worse and worse. So, I mean, that's something I could talk about forever, but I just think that the more we can do to remove these horrible crimes, not just crime, but these horrible crimes, the better.
Yep. I 100% agree with you, JJ. 100% agree with you. Last one, and then we're going to get into the shows. And I know we're coming up on an hour, guys. We're gonna keep going. But Instagram, I forget. Sometimes Instagram has like so those of you on Instagram, if it cuts out, we're gonna keep going. Appreciate you guys joining us. Last topic, news topic that I found: U.S. deploys B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia, aimed at rising tensions. JJ,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but back in my day, we didn't talk about Diego Garcia.
No, actually it wasn't so openly discussed when we started throwing bombers places either.
I don't think it was openly discussed up until about an hour ago before we started the show.
Yeah. And that's all supposed to be top secret.
Is it just coincidence? Now, I bring this story to life because of what happened earlier this week with Pete. Is it tied together? I don't know. But here's the thing. And you talk about most people have never heard of Diego Garcia. I'm not going to be the one that gets into a whole hell of a lot of detail on it. You see movies, a lot of the movies depict certain things. Transformers, they talked a little bit about it. Is it a it's just a place that's not talked about, and for damn good reason, in my opinion.
Yes.
And the fact that they said deploys B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia. Here's what this article said: is the United States has increased military presence at Diego, a strategic base. I'm not going to say where. You can read the articles. Additional B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. The move signals potential forthcoming airstrikes against targets in Yemen. This is what the news is reporting on. I'm just repeating what I saw on the news. Okay. Don't kill the messenger.
Well, you can't stop the news from reporting.
Well, they're idiots.
Yeah, they are. But my personal opinion with this is we're not going to see a whole heck of a lot more about it. And for good reason.
I hope
because the more we find, I mean, that is supposed to be, I'm not going to go into what Diego Garcia is, but nothing should be reported about Diego Garcia.
Yeah. When asked about the movement of the B-2 bombers, the Air Force Global Strike Command stated, quote, U.S. Strategic Command, its components, and its subordinate units routinely conduct global operations in coordination with other combatant commands, services, and participating U.S. government agencies to deter, detect, and if necessary, defeat strategic attacks against the United States and its allies. To preserve operational security, we do not discuss details about exercises or operations, end quote. I would think that's a typical response, and certainly the right one to give some idiot at a news organization.
Yes.
It's frustrating. I remember there was a time where I will call him out because I'm not a big fan of him. I don't think he watches the show anyway, but what was his name? Geraldo Guerrero. I think it was during the first Gulf when it might have been during the first golf where he started doing a sand table on like, oh, this is where we are and this is where we're going and blah 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 blah, and he got in big trouble for doing that. I remember in 2003 there was a group um uh of news reporters that started to do something very similar, and their camera broke
Mm,
abruptly.
interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's one of those things where like I'm everybody knows my stance with mainstream media. I don't like it. You know, and that's why I tell you guys to, every week protect your mind when you look at stuff, even the stuff that I'm bringing to you today. If you look this stuff over the weekend, do your research on it and come up with your own conclusions with it. Please. Please.
Yeah, don't just look at one platform either. Make sure you're digging around a little bit if you're concerned about something and want to find out more about it, because you're going to find that sometimes these things are honestly just smoke and mirrors. So you got to make sure that you're doing your proper research to find out the most about it, because the media is certainly going to pull you in 15 different directions.
Enemy of the people, I think.
Yeah.
Because we're living in the world's largest psyop right now, and if you don't believe that, go to a different country. You guys know I just got back from Mexico. Let me tell you, it was great, and it was fun talking to the people down there that have a perspective on what's going on up here. Because I've had people down there saying, "Why is it so negative up there?" That is a great question, and when you figure it out, let me know.
Yep. Even in Canada and Europe and Mexico, I mean, anytime I talk to somebody about what's going on over here from a different country,
Yeah,
they all have a completely different perspective.
yeah, it is.
And
It
it's
is.
awesome to listen to it.
Yeah, it blows my mind the different perspective that they have
Mhm.
uh over there. I got a friend in Japan. He's like, he swears up and down. He's like, I'm glad I moved here. He's like, because I watch the news and see what's going on over back home, and it's depressing.
Mhm.
I was like, well, you're not wrong, you know. So that's it for the topics, folks. Let's dive into some of these shows real quick. We're gonna go through these, and I tell you what we're gonna do. And I didn't prepare him for this, so I'm gonna throw him uh right out in the open here. JJ, let's talk
Yes.
about your most recent episodes with your podcast, or talk a little bit more about your podcast if you want. But what do you have coming up with your podcast? Man, bring them both up. What do we have first?
So, my very last episode, I will just go ahead and pull both of them up. For one, I on set tomorrow, I'm doing a live stream with Chris Pinkowski where we're going to be discussing change management. So if that's something that interests you, just reach out to me on any of my platforms. Definitely go to my YouTube, because I live stream all of this stuff, and go there. But we're going to be talking about that. He used to be a leadership coach, and now he works for a company, and he has noticed that a lot of people are not nearly as skilled as they should be, or resilient to the idea of change. And
Mm.
former service members like we are,
Yeah.
I tell you what, man, change is kind of the name of the game. I mean, everything is always changing. You get a new commander, change.
Yeah.
An operation didn't go well, change. So that's something. And warrior leadership, we're doing a series on resilience, and that's coming up. Um, I was going to be doing a live stream on that tomorrow, but I don't know if that's going to work out. More to follow. But anyway, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you will see that. Now, all of these episodes that are on Warrior Veteranpreneur podcast and Warrior Leadership, they're about 6 weeks back. So if you see it go live, you'll see it on Spotify about six to 7 weeks later.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's kind of the way that has gone. Because I did a lot of pre-recording
Yeah.
on some of them, and some of them were live. So
That's awesome.
yeah, but that I've done a quite a few episodes for my Warrior Veteranpreneur podcast. I mean, I think one of my favorite ones, even though we cut out a ton, it won't look that way on Spotify because I'm going to do video editing. But I've talked to people about doing hikes with service members, which is I've already been planning for about a year now, something similar that I'll be doing in my business, but it's just about wellness and community. And in addition to that, there's a guy who trains. He's still active in the National Guard, but he's a canine trainer, and he does it all over the country. I mean, everything that you watch on there. I mean, I talked to a guy who owns his own business, and he consults people on how to start a franchise, and then he has partners all over, with different franchises, and he can help you get started if that's what you choose to do. I mean, if you want to know anything about the entrepreneurs that are out there, and there's something, and somebody who you feel like is doing something wonderful, you just got to connect them with me, because I love, especially veterans, man, I love highlighting what they're doing and showing that anybody from any background, once we've transitioned, can definitely go out there and just kill it. And so many people are killing it. Adam's killing it. I feel like, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'm killing it. I mean, I know so many people out there that are killing it. There's no reason why we all can't do it.
And that's why we love having you on the network and be a part of the family now, because it's about the community, and it's about creating that positiveness that's out there so we can combat all the negativity that's out there. So JJ, we thank you for being on here with us. Let's dive into some of the other shows. Folks, you can see all of the shows, including JJ's show, now live on Heroes Media Group. Go to heroesmediagroup.com, click on the podcast button, and you'll see all the shows that are there. Next up in the queue, we got True Patriot Outfitters with their Doc Talk podcast this week. U.S. Navy vet and founder of Kayak Bass Fishing League, Mr. Chad Hoover, stops by to talk all bass fishing. Next show is April 1st. It's pre-recorded because Gene is out traveling right now, and we love it. Safe travels, brother. April 1st show is going through the last 4 years of their podcast shows. It's kind of a reunion type show, if you will. So stay tuned for that. That'll be Tuesday, April 1st. Next up, we got the Strategic Veteran. Adam Peters is the host of that, Army veteran. He did 3 episodes this week. Daryl Williams, Zach Walker, and last night he posted the Dr. John Hillen, former U.S. Army captain, veteran of Desert Storm, and leadership expert, shares his insights on resilience, strategy, and career pivots from patrolling the Berlin Wall at night. The Berlin Wall. Yeah, remember the Berlin Wall at night? All of us old folks. To when it fell, to his leading business that he has now. Great episode. It's really cool. Check it out, the Strategic Veteran. Because Bikers Matter podcast, go check them out. Social media, Because Bikers Matter, they're back on the network here April 1st. Homefront Sit Rep podcast with our man David. JJ, that's how we met. It was through David, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah.
Correct.
This one, From Darkness to Dawn with Eric Donahoe. Sergeant from the United States Army Infantry, is a survivor of veteran suicide and is actively working to overcome chronic health challenges from burn pits to toxic exposure. Eric hopes that sharing not just his story, but the stories of hundreds of veterans that he has met up with along the way on his journey will give the lawmakers perspective on how IAVA, Big Six, all work together to help combat the epidemics that veterans are facing in our community. So also this week, they did David from Homefront Sit Rep podcast. He puts together a Tip of the Spear. It's a round table that meets the last Wednesday of every month. And I got to listen to it. I was on the road. Great episode. Had a ton of people on this past Wednesday. So
yeah, I was on last month's, and I think that the conversations that we have on there are just amazing.
I love it. I love it. I try to get on there. I never get a chance to, but I listen to it because I'm usually in the car.
Yeah.
Let's hear. Next up, we have Patriots Inside the Wire with Tracy Two Steps, Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday nights, live on their Facebook page from 4 to 6 p.m. That's Central Standard Time. A ton of music guests that come on. We're behind on this. We talked to Tracy yesterday, where I'm getting her caught up with the audio side of it. So stay tuned as the podcast. But if you want to see the live shows and the videos, go to her Facebook page, Patriots Inside the Wire. Go check it out. It does a hell of a show. Next up, Bump in the Road. This week, Amy Sponza, she's a passion for storytelling, was awakened, and she decided to follow her heart. Today, she coaches. She's got a coaching services to help others do the same. She encourages others to design their dreams and take the decisive steps towards them. Pretty cool episode. Check it out. Bump in the Road. Richard Maver, what's up, big bro? Oh, I love it. I love it. Thanks for jumping on, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. My boy Rich. Next up, we got the Arms Room Show. This week, they're discussing selecting a hunting rifle and what you absolutely need to have. This is for every hunter that's out there, this is a must listen to episode. Check it out, Arms Room Show. Next up, Misfit Nation podcast. This week, our man Rich welcomes Ann Alexandria, founder of Act Bold and creator of Get Better Roles and Passion Project, to Pro or P2. Discover Ann's, she reignited her acting career at the age of 47, landing roles with top studios like A24, Hallmark, and Netflix. This was a really cool episode. Like, it's like one of those things with like, don't give up on your dreams kind of thing. And at 47 years old, she started landing all these big roles and with these studios. It was a cool episode. Check it out, Misfit Nation podcast. Next up, Label Free podcast. We got power duo Anna and Dion Holzman, all the way from the Netherlands. And they are the founders of the SMB Growth Ninja team, talking about how they specialize in empowering small and medium-sized businesses, and their own owners to achieve wealth beyond just financial success. I think this is a key one here too. This was a great episode because a lot of people think that success is only money driven, and in my opinion, that is not the definition of success. My question is, if you ask me what's my definition of success, I'd ask you, are you happy? Are you happy in life? Something to think about, guys. Think about it. Next up, we got your 6 at 6 with the People's Patriot Project every Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time up there in Minnesota. They got like a round table that they do. I absolutely love it. They also got their weekly debrief that they do live. You can find all of their stuff on their social platforms as well. Go check it out. They put on a great show. Mark and Andrea are just fantastic. Next, we got the Decision Hour with yours truly. This week, I sit down with Marine Corps veteran and dear friend, Jeremy Knopf. He's the founder of Spartan Media. You want to talk about PR and marketing and SEO? Like, Jeremy is the PR legend. Like, he works with people. He jumps on, reveals secrets of effective PR, emphasizing that it's all about creating relationships, not just the transactions. He walks you through understanding audience needs, crafting compelling pitches, and building lasting connections with journalists. This was such an eye-opening episode. And if you're a small business owner and you're struggling with marketing and PR, this is a must listen to. Jeremy is the best in the business with this. And he's got years and years and years of experience and successful stories that some of them that we talk about. So check it out. It's the Decision Hour. Next up, we got Other Side of the Firewall. This week, they're talking about Saudi Arabia's $3.5 billion trade oil for Pokemon Go's data gold mine. I should have put this in one of the topics that we talked about today. I could not believe that Saudi Arabia, the recent acquisition of Pokemon Go by Saudi Arabia, they acquired all of the data and information. That they bought $3.5 billion. I think one of the things, and the other side of the firewall, if you're not into tech stuff like protecting your computers. They talk a lot about cybersecurity and AI. You have to listen to the show. These guys are experts in these fields, but they're talking about the privacy and some of the concerns that come with what this acquisition that took place is going to happen. So, other side of the firewall, check it out. Next up, chasing happiness. This week, navigating life storms while keeping your peace and moving forward in a world full of roadblocks and setbacks. How do you overcome anxiety and stay focused on your goals? Some of the key takeaways: know how to handle multiple challenges at once while still moving forward. The power of reflection and what it can do when facing overwhelming situations, and a whole lot more. Take a listen. That's Ryan Dement over at Chasing Happiness. Check it out. Last one for this week, folks. Stay with me. Rise Up, Voices from the Front Line. They're talking Kids Safe. This is a new, what was I going to say? This is a new show within this show. And this week they're talking security and surveillance. This week, Kids Safe, they dive into the first S, which is security and surveillance, and how it plays a vital role in keeping kids safe from predators. From home security systems to GPS trackers, from smart cameras to the top 5 parental control apps, we cover 5 real actionable ways to protect your child, featuring real life cases like Audrey Cunningham and Jay Kloss. In this episode, packed with tools, tips, and life-saving strategies that every parent needs to know. It's called Rise Up, Voices from the Front Line. Go check it out. That was a good episode as well. I got to give a shout out. You guys see that I'm repping the From the Farms brand. Big news with that organization. Go check them out, fromthefarms.com. My tax fella, it's tax season. How many like doing taxes? Yeah, I didn't think so. So get the professionals to do it. Have them do it right. mytaxfella.com. Go check it out. Forget Genetics. I just spent Tuesday with Barry from Forget Genetics. We drove down to Southern Virginia with one of his clients, hunting property down there. Great organization, hunting. Forget Genetics. Go check them out. Jim Neary's Live Bait and Tackle, Warriors on the Water LTD. Both great organizations. I, being an amateur angler, am looking forward because fishing season is right around the corner. So I'm going to be out on the water on the weekends. Fin Tactical, great organization. They're the ones responsible for the beautiful HMG website that's up now. Go check them out. The Freedom People, if you need a trust, these are the only people I trust putting that trust together. freedompeople.org. Go check them out. And then veterans that are struggling with your VA claims. There is an app. It is free. That's my second favorite 4-letter word. Free. It's called VA Claim Builder. Go check it out. Reach out to Gino and Ranger Johnson. VA Claim Builder. It's a free app. Go check this out. And if you need more information on it, send us DM us a message, and I'll get you in touch with those guys. So that is it. Thank you to our sponsors. JJ, thank you for you taking time today, and thank you for becoming part of the HMG family.
Thank you for bringing me on. It was an honor.
Absolutely, brother. I want to thank all of you. Sissy, thank you. Have a good day. Thank all of you that were on the live today, and those of you that watched this throughout the weekend. Remember, folks, protect your mind. All right. The spring is here, right? The weather's getting warmer. Put this down. Get outside this weekend. Go for a walk. Get out in nature. Do something with your family. Remember, just be positive and do something do something nice for somebody else this weekend. That's my challenge to you. We're going to be right back here next week, same time, same ugly mug. God bless you guys. God bless America. Take care, y'all. We'll see you next week.